the 2012 election approaches in November, it is worth noting the importance of Asian Americans' huge role in politics. Asian Americans have been successful in gaining representation on Capitol Hill relative to other minority groups. In the past half-century, there has been more than 2,000 Asian American and Pacific Islanders elected and appointed representatives nationwide. Asian Americans have been elected at the local level, state level, the House of Representatives, the Senate, and there has been representation in the presidential cabinet. Although Asian Americans now only make up about 5% of the United States population, they have made noise on the political scene. Perhaps no Asian American politician has been more influential than Norman Mineta. Mineta, a first-generation Japanese American, is one of the highest-ranking Asian American politicians to date, reaching the presidential cabinet under Bill Clinton as the Secretary of Commerce and again under George Bush in 2001, overseeing transportation. Mineta was also the first Asian American to become a mayor, a position he so honorably took in San Jose, California. Mineta was born and raised in San Jose, California. He lived a comfortable life with his family until the start of World War II, when he and his family were sent along with thousands of other Asian Americans to Wyoming to be interned.
To think that your own government thinks of you as being disloyal, thinks of you and that whole shame of distrust and disloyalty that the government sort of put on the backs of those of Japanese ancestry was a yoke that they carried from, let's say, in that early 1942 period for all these years.
Upon his return to San Jose, he graduated from San Jose High School and then attended UC Berkeley, where he earned his business degree. He entered politics several years later as the first Asian American mayor. Mineta's political career has been highlighted by his advocacy for retribution payments to be paid to those families who were interned.
When President Reagan, on August 10, 1988, signed H.R. 442 into law, and there was that phrase that, and on behalf of the American people, the United States Congress apologizes for the gross violation of the civil rights, of the basic human rights of those of Japanese ancestry. And it was then, I think, that yoke of shame was then taken off everybody's shoulders.
He is now better known for his role during the 9/11 attacks. As the Secretary of Transportation, he was responsible for calling down all aircraft and advising the President on what decisions were to be made. Many politicians had scrutinized his decisions immediately after the attacks.
When it got down to the plane is 10 miles out, the young man also said to the Vice President, "Do the orders still stand?" And the Vice President turned and whipped his neck around and said, "Of course the orders still stand. Have you heard anything to the contrary?" Well, at the time I didn't know what all that meant.
Since then, Mineta has not taken much heat for his actions on 9/11, and critics focus on the amount of good he has done not only for Asian Americans, but Americans in general. Asian Americans are expected to turn out to vote in record numbers for the 2012 election. Many political analysts feel that Asian American candidates have a very strong chance of gaining representation in areas not seen before. Candidates in places such as Arizona, Illinois, Texas, and Massachusetts are all states where Asian American candidates are making a strong push to gain seats in the Senate or the House of Representatives. With an increase in Asian American population comes increased odds of success for these politicians.